7, 8, and 9 are plotting points in the polar coordinates. When you do polar coordinates, you have your direction, and then you have an angle. So, if I'm going to plot where negative 4 and 11 pi over 6 is, I'm first going to go to negative 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Right there's my negative 4. You'll see there's a little circle there. I'm going to do 11 pi over 6. I'm going to go clockwise around because it is positive. And so 1 pi over 6, 2 pi over 6, 3 pi over 6, 4, 5, 6, 6 pi over 6 would be 1 pi halfway around my circle. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I would end up right there. That's where I'm going to put my dot. So I went to negative 4, and then I went around 11 pi over 6, and that's where I put my mark. So on number 8, we are doing the polar coordinate that is at negative 5 and negative 2 pi over 3. So negative 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would be this ring right here, negative 5. Negative 2 pi over 3, since it's easier to count with pi over 6 because that's each of my thirds, I would say negative 2 pi over 3 is the same thing as negative 4 pi over 6. Now since this is negative, I'm actually going to go back 4 pi over 6. So 1 pi over 6, 2 pi over 6, 3 pi over 6, 4 pi over 6 would put me right there because I'm going to go backwards, negative 2 pi over 3. I could have made that a positive angle by adding 2 pi to it, but probably just as easy to do the negative and just go backwards. Your negative 2 pi over 3. And number 9, if I want to plot that one, I'm going to start at 2. So here's my ring where 2 is. I'm going to do a negative 11 pi over 6, so I'm going to go backwards. 1 pi over 6, 2 pi over 6, 3 pi over 6, 4 pi over 6, 5 pi over 6, 6 pi over 6. I'm halfway around my circle. 7 pi over 6, 8 pi over 6, and 9 pi over 6 would be 3/4 of the way around. 10 pi over 6, 11 pi over 6. So right there, I started here, I went backwards, negative 11 pi over 6, and I ended up right there for my mark. You're just going to mark where that ending point is, and so I would just mark right here where I have my X. So polar coordinates give you a direction and then an angle that you go around.